So talk to me about like who's using this stuff.
A lot of people are using it, but our most popular customers, and I hate saying customers, most popular, individuals, users, patients that do this products. We have two sides of the business. Yeah. Historically, we have always been a physician business. So before BioPro ever even existed, we have 10 years of only selling, because we actually own, and we don't necessarily make them all anymore, but we own close to 30 different formulas, whether they're, weight loss formulas or lipotropics or vitamin formulas, hydration stuff. We own all these, it's part of the IP of what we purchased. And we've sold those, we call them legacy products, but we've sold them in the clinical space for a decade. So we have an entire clinical space who's pretty much really got onto the whole BioPro thing because it kind of blew everything else out of the water. It's also the most evolved of what we've ever created. We have our clinicians who are physicians. They're DOs, MDs, they're PAs, PACs, NPs who sell these products in their clinics because like we're talking about TRT, that is a cash pay business. That is not an insurance business. You go in, you pay cash, you buy stuff like anywhere else. BioPro sits right on their shelf or it goes right in with their other therapies and it gets provided via the clinic, the physician, to their patients. So those are our number one customers. And then you have, when we kind of made our switch was providing these products direct during the, the whole COVID thing, which is the big switch we had to make was, the clinics were shutting down and they were.
You're not getting orders anymore.
Our hotspots were all the areas that were really affected by lockdowns and changes of policy. Right, LA. Southern California is our biggest market. Southern California, New York, Las Vegas. These are all places. San Francisco used to be, not so much anymore. These are all places that are directly affected and were shut down. So when people were no longer allowed to go into the clinics, cash-based stuff, everybody lost. Everybody was losing money. Right. So we flipped. And there's an interesting story to that of, how we got into the internet business, but we flipped and figured out during that process of keeping the lights on, I had to learn how to do business on the internet. So we made some investments in building the functionality to provide the products direct to the patient. We had the physicians involved. We did all kind of this cool stuff. And then it kind of took on a life of its own. And it went from, we were still, I would consider a small company at that point, just with a really cool product. And that's when the graph started to kind of shoot up, was people started finding this stuff of communities I hadn't actually ever been involved in. And it happened like on its own. In fact, I fought some of it for a while.
How do you mean? Sure. How do you mean?
So like certain individuals got a hold of our products that they did very well. They work, right? They work for people. So you start getting messages from interesting individuals who you never had any connection with. One of those individuals being, we talked about, was Greg Anderson.
Yep.
Greg Anderson is one of the cooler guys that I know. Don't tell him I said that. One of the cooler guys that I know. I've actually learned a lot from this guy. But he, and I don't want to butcher anything, so I'm going to keep it really top. But he, Army guy, did a bunch of tours overseas. Came back, became a cop, was a cop in Seattle area through the whole, crazy stuff that was going on in Seattle. Then from, the protests and different things.
Well, we had COVID, plus we had,
you had everything.
Everything that was
Remember,
happening.
I'm a Florida guy, so you guys, we were basically living in different countries. Because...
Yes, you were.
When I looked outside, we had 3 weeks of shut down to slow the spread or whatever that was. And I'll be honest with you, and please, for anybody it really affected, I feel for you, and I can't imagine having to go through what yourself, what you had to go through. But for us, it just meant there was no traffic.
It was
I could go order food. It was beautiful. It was like being on vacation. And so we were living in different countries. And anyway, back to Greg. Greg was a cop during this entire time. He did not agree with the orders that were coming down from the top. Made a video from his squad car in uniform saying, "Hey, I'm not going to do this. Everybody else in a uniform, if you do this, know what you are subscribing to. And if you believe in what you took an oath for and who you are as a person, you shouldn't do these things and you shouldn't enforce these things." Well, his department originally gave him kind of a lot of guys were like, yeah, Greg. And then all of a sudden,
we're on your team.
Until
the
video took off. And then I have no idea how many views it got, but
it went viral.
Yeah, big time. And then the mood changed. And it was no longer like, "Hey, Greg, cool." It was like, "Hey, you got to take that down." And so he's like, I can't do his story justice. And I always recommend, go listen to Greg's show or whatever thing you do, because, he's got a cool show too. And let him tell the story or whatever, because I can't give it credit. But basically, it came down to him thinking to himself and looking at his family going, if I succumb to this, do this, what will my kids think of me? What will my family, what are the people around me think of me? Like, I can't do this. And he didn't basically, flip the switch like, hey, Greg, we're not playing around here. Take it down. He's like, I can't. So he was, had a
surreptitiously fired.
Correct. Yep. Probably. And I believe he would agree with me. Probably the best thing that ever happened to him. Now he tells guys all the time, like, hey, if you're going to, it gave him the ability to go follow his dreams and do what he wants, which is what we get to. He owns a jiu-jitsu academy. Mm-hmm. So he's a black belt for a long time, very big into the jiu-jitsu martial arts type stuff. And so started his jiu-jitsu academy, started a show, his video went viral, and he's a popular guy in the interweb. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know who he was. He got a hold of our product. We got connected through a mutual individual from a physician that was offering our products, was recommended to Greg. Greg got a hold of it. He has a show. He said, hey, basically, the same thing we do is just, we're not allowed to do business on the internet, basically, from a marketing perspective.
That's
so what we do is we go through guys like yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Who have outreach and followings and shows and stuff, the word of mouth. So Greg has a show. Hey, let's work on a deal here. And he loved the product. He tested it, which, if you know anything about Greg, he is not a guy that does something he don't believe in. Clearly, he doesn't pull punches. He literally gave up his entire life at that point to do something that he believed in. So from Greg, it just spawned. And the special forces community, the jiu-jitsu community, law enforcement, first responders, that community grabbed us and brought us in from a guy who, I didn't.
You have no background.
I didn't even go to, I couldn't even go to college, let alone join the military or anything like that. I mean, that's was the furthest thing from what I was doing, and it just spread. And from Greg, it went to other guys, and now it's all of these different individuals in the special forces community and the DOD. I mean, our products were even tested by the FBI in special factions of their teams and they blind tested them and worked with their own teams and did all this cool stuff. I mean, it's mind blowing, because I fought personally. This is me. I take responsibility for this. I fought advertising on podcasts. I fought trying to be a social media company. It all did it in spite of me. I fought it. I didn't want to do it. And, I'm happy that
here we are.
Not my way. And here we are now. I'm, a similar story to yourself, right? You get the product. It turns out it actually, you like it. Mm-hmm. And poof, we're sitting here, in an office in Tampa.